The best thing for people
Yeah.
in Hollywood that are entrenched in that world is to shut the fuck up. Because as soon as they start talking, people like, as soon as
The Hollywood bubble has a way of inflating egos until they float far above reality, and few embody this drift more than Robert De Niro. Once revered for his raw, electric performances in films like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and The Godfather Part 2, De Niro has spent recent years carving out a different role, the outspoken, red-faced political crusader who seems to think his Oscar statuettes double as a PhD in global affairs. Over the past 8 years, his relentless anti-Trump tirades have become a fixture at award shows, press conferences, and anywhere a microphone dares to linger. But this time, his unscripted rants ran into a buzzsaw. Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly, two media heavyweights from opposite corners of the cultural ring, separately dismantled De Niro's self-appointed soapbox with a mix of sarcasm, precision, and zero patience for Hollywood's sanctimonious posturing. What unfolded wasn't a debate, it was a public roasting that left De Niro looking like a man shouting at shadows, unaware the audience had already left the theater. De Niro's descent into political caricature has been hard to watch for fans who once saw him as the epitome of cinematic grit. His performances as Travis Bickle or Jake LaMotta were masterclasses in controlled chaos, but his real-life political outbursts lack that finesse. He's traded nuanced method acting for megaphone monologues, each one dripping with the kind of partisan venom that makes half the country wince. His rhetoric, calling Trump supporters names, predicting apocalyptic doom if his side doesn't win, feels less like activism and more like a tantrum from someone who's forgotten how to lose gracefully. At 80, De Niro's not just yelling at the TV, he's trying to rewrite the script of reality itself, and it's not landing. The man who once played untouchable gangsters now looks like he's auditioning for a role he doesn't understand, elder statesman of a divided nation. Enter Joe Rogan, the podcast juggernaut who's built an empire on unfiltered conversations and a knack for sniffing out nonsense. Rogan didn't need to name De Niro directly. His takedown was a masterclass in precision shade. With his signature laid-back delivery, somewhere between stoner philosopher and cage-side commentator, Rogan painted a picture of a certain type of Hollywood star, the kind who thinks playing a mob boss qualifies them to lecture on geopolitics. Without ever saying De Niro, he sketched a caricature so vivid it could have been etched on a movie poster. Rogan's point was simple but brutal. Just because you've memorized lines about loyalty and power doesn't mean you're equipped to weigh in on trade policy or electoral strategy. It's like a barista claiming they can pilot a rocket because they make a mean latte. Rogan's roast was delivered with a smirk, the kind of half-laugh you let out when you see someone embarrassing themselves but can't look away. He didn't yell or grandstand. He didn't need to. His commentary was a verbal sledgehammer, dismantling the ego of celebrities who mistake fame for wisdom. These are the folks, Rogan argued, who crave applause over dialogue, validation over facts. They don't want a debate, they want a standing ovation. And when they don't get it, they double down, flailing like a one-man show in front of a crowd that's already checked out. Rogan's bit was less about De Niro specifically and more about the archetype he's come to represent, the Hollywood loudmouth who thinks a SAG card is a license to preach. Then came Megyn Kelly, and where Rogan played the amused observer, Kelly was the prosecutor who'd been waiting for her moment. A former attorney turned media firebrand, Kelly didn't bother with jokes, she went straight for the jugular. Like Rogan, she avoided naming De Niro, but her description of a Hollywood loudmouth who confuses the Oscars with Capitol Hill was a neon arrow pointing at him. Kelly's takedown was surgical, slicing through the absurdity of actors using award shows as political pulpits. She called out the disconnect. These are people who live in gated mansions with private security, preaching justice to rooms full of clapping sycophants, all while dodging any real accountability. No votes, no policy debates, just the echo of their own voices bouncing off golden statues. Kelly's core argument was about authenticity, or the lack thereof. She didn't drag De Niro's filmography, she didn't need to. Instead, she exposed the gap between his on-screen gravitas and his off-screen rants. Actors like De Niro, she argued, lean on their fame to amplify half-baked opinions, mistaking red carpet clout for intellectual credibility. It's not just that they're out of touch. It's that they're reckless, preaching to audiences too polite or too paid to push back. Kelly's delivery was calm but cutting, like a lawyer dismantling a weak witness. She didn't need to raise her voice, her facts were loud enough. And when she was done, the silence spoke volumes. What made this double takedown so devastating was its unintentional synergy. Rogan and Kelly operate in different worlds. Rogan's the everyman philosopher with a mic and a joint. Kelly's the polished media veteran with a law degree and a vendetta against nonsense. They didn't coordinate, didn't share a stage, didn't even need to. They just saw the same circus and called it out for what it was. A fading star shouting into the void, oblivious to how silly he looked. De Niro's rants, once dismissed as eccentric, have crossed into self-parody. He's not a voice of reason. He's a meme in a tuxedo, waving his arms at enemies only he can see. The irony is thick. De Niro built a career playing grounded, complex characters, men who spoke softly but carried big sticks. Now he's the guy yelling at a press conference outside a Trump trial, looking like he wandered out of a Scorsese set and into a political cartoon. His latest outburst, sent by the Biden campaign to counter Trump's narrative, was a masterclass in self-sabotage. Standing in front of a bored crowd, De Niro railed about Trump's supposed threat to democracy, tossing insults like a street preacher who forgot his lines. It wasn't inspiring, it was awkward. Even his supporters cringed. The man who once commanded screens with a single glance was now a caricature, heckled by passersby and roasted by commentators who didn't even need to try. Rogan's reaction was pure comedy. He leaned into the absurdity, comparing De Niro to a football player who's taken one too many hits and needs to sit in the blue tent for a concussion check. It's not just that De Niro's rants are unhinged, it's that they're counterproductive, fanning flames in a country already tired of division. Rogan's delivery, half chuckling, half exasperated, captured the mood of a public that's over being lectured by millionaires. Kelly, meanwhile, went for the structural flaw. She argued that celebrities like De Niro aren't just misguided, they're part of a broken system where fame is mistaken for expertise. They're not leading movements. They're monologuing in echo chambers, preaching to audiences who clap because it's in the script. The real sting of this moment lies in its subtext. De Niro's not just losing the room, he's losing the fans who once idolized him. People don't want to hear Travis Bickle rant about tariffs or democracy. They want the quiet intensity that made him a legend. But De Niro seems oblivious, doubling down on speeches that alienate half the country while convincing himself he's saving it. His recent gripe about Trump's tariff plans to boost American filmmaking, ironic for a man who's made millions in Hollywood, only underscored his disconnect. He's not speaking for the working class. He's speaking from a penthouse, and the view from up there is blurry. This isn't about politics. It's about credibility. De Niro's spent decades pretending to be tough guys, but real toughness lies in knowing when to shut up. Rogan and Kelly didn't just roast him, they held up a mirror, and what reflected back wasn't a cultural icon, but a man lost in his own script. Rogan saw the humor in it, chuckling at the absurdity of an actor playing a political sage. Kelly saw the tragedy, horrified that someone with so much influence could squander it on tantrums. Together, they painted a picture of a star who's forgotten the difference between a stage and a soapbox. The public's exhaustion is palpable. People are tired of being scolded by celebrities who live lives most can't imagine. De Niro's not leading a revolution. He's shouting at pigeons in a park, convinced he's changing the world. His rants don't inspire, they alienate. And when two voices as different as Rogan's and Kelly's sync up to call out the same absurdity, it's a sign the tide has turned. De Niro's not the voice of a generation anymore. He's the uncle you mute at Thanksgiving, ranting about enemies no one else can see. The beauty of this moment is its clarity. Rogan and Kelly didn't need to scream or scheme. They just told the truth. De Niro spent years leaning on his fame to amplify his voice, but fame isn't wisdom, and applause isn't agreement. The crowd's not clapping anymore. They're laughing or worse, tuning out. And that's the real tragedy, a legend who could have aged gracefully, but chose instead to burn out in a blaze of self-inflicted irrelevance. Rogan and Kelly didn't take him down, they just pointed out he was already falling. And the audience, for once, saw it too. 1498 words.